Okay, this training is going to cover user groups. So through the CMS you can create different users and different groups that have different levels of access to the CMS. The login information that you have received and that you're accessing currently the CMS is a site administrator, pretty much full access to the CMS. There's a few tools that we at Newfangled and developers have that you don't have, but for the most part you have full access using the site administrators. So I'm going to close this out. We're at our Lindsay Turkey site, and I'm going to go to Do Stuff, click the arrow, and you will see that you have this users section right here. And when you go in and you create a user group, you will be deciding what types of content they can edit. So it'll be all these different areas here, from comments to custom forms, which we'll cover in another training, activity logs, forms, basic content, the blog, your menu, and tracking. Okay, we'll cover tracking in another training as well. So I'm going to go in first, and anytime you want to add a particular user with a different set of login or user credentials and access, you need to create a group first. So I'm going to go in and just go to Find under Users, Site Administrators, and you can see there's just one right here. Alright, now you have an option to add a user, so I can add multiple users that are site administrators. Or you could add a group, which is going to have, which you would go in and just give different levels of access to. So let's say I'm going to go in and I'm going to look at this site administrators group first. And you'll notice that this is the group edit, and you'll have a default details page, and they can access the activity manager, the blog, comments if that's enabled on your blog, all the content, so everything that falls under that do stuff content area. You can see everything's checked, and there's two columns here. One is for editing that information and one's for viewing it. Custom forms, whether they can go in and manage the forms, and we're going to cover those as well, how to manage your form settings. Friendly links, menus, so that would be your edit site main, edit site footer. Tracking, and we'll talk about tracking in another training. Users, whether they can go in and create new users or user groups, and web top. This very last tab is the most important one whenever you're creating a new user group, to make sure this is checked off, because web top access means they can access the CMS. Okay, I'm going to click the back button, and I want to add a new group. And we're going to go ahead under class, we're going to say the administrators class, and we'll give it a name, and we'll say resources and group. Okay, you can put in notes if you want to, not necessary. Start page URL, if every time you want them to start at the resources page when they log in, you would just simply do everything after the .com. And for that page, it's going to be /resources. You can also set the start page per user as well. Remember, right now we're just adding a group, and then we can assign different users with different usernames and passwords to each group. Alright, activity. They don't need to be able to go in and just look at the website's activity. Blog, yes, they need to be able to access and edit that. I'll give them blog manager access. Let's say that I have my comments enabled. I will say comments, and I want them to be able to edit the user comments, because if somebody goes in there and puts in a comment that is you don't want to keep, you can go in and delete that. Content. So this is where I'll go in to decide what they can edit. And I will say content manager access. I'm going to check that. And they can view everything. But as far as the editing, I'm going to go in and decide. So I got my resources here, and I only want them to be able to edit the resources section, and let's say also news and events. So I'm going to go in and check edit articles, magazines, or white papers, edit case studies, edit literature, edit photos, and edit resource category, and then I'll say edit event and edit news item. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say they can do videos too, since that falls under resources. Okay. Alright, so that covers everything. Under the blog, though, I do want to add a couple more. They can edit blog category, they can edit the blog post, and they can edit the blog. So there's two areas. There's this blog, just giving them manager access, then also under content, select that as well. Custom forms, no. Forms, no. Friendly links, yes. They can go in and add friendly links to those pages. And I'll give them the 301 redirect as well, and we'll talk about that. Remember, 301 redirects are if you have an old URL that you need to point to the new URL on your site, you use 301 redirects. And you only put in the relative URL, which is everything after the .com, that's the / on. So if your old URL was lindsay.com / about, and the new one is lindsay.com / about Lindsay, you would set a 301 redirect to point / about to / about Lindsay. Okay, now anytime you change your friendly link in the CMS, it's going to automatically generate that 301 redirect for you, so you don't need to worry about that. So if somebody has the old URL, it will automatically generate that 301 redirect, and they'll be taken to the new URL if you change a friendly link. If you're not familiar with the friendly links, you should watch the training video on SEO best practices and using your metadata tab. Menus, don't need to give them the access to menu manager. Tracking, if they want to see who's been coming in, I don't want them to delete those, and I don't want them to manage lead scores. And I don't want them to be able to go in and edit or add users or user groups. And then the most important one, the last tab, web top, make sure that is checked. Okay, I'll click save, and we have a new group, and I'm going to go in and add a new user by clicking on add user. And now I'm going to select my resources group that I created. We'll say Mitch, and then password is test. You can give it an expiration date. You do need to give it an email. Okay, and you can also set the start page there. I'll set it / resources. If you want to, you can put in their contact information or any notes as well. Okay. Okay, and passwords must be 6 characters long, so let me fix that. Okay, now I'm going to go back to do stuff, users, and I want to find list all users. And you can see that there is now a Mitch that is under the resources group. I'm going to log out. Okay, and then I'm going to log back in. And you can see that I now have the ability to edit the videos, which I gave. I can also edit the blog, as well as photos, but I do not have the ability to edit other pages. So you will not see any of the content edit buttons on these other pages. I can only edit the resources that I gave that user group the ability to edit. Okay, I'm going to go back to do stuff. And because I don't have user management with this particular one, I can't go in, and you can see everything that I limited there. That's the only thing they will see on the back end of the CMS. So the blog, the redirects, and the content area where with news and events. So I can't add an event, I can't add news, I can, but there's no other content showing up that I can edit. Okay? All right. Let me log out here. And I'm going to log back in as a site administrator, the main Lindsay Turkey one. Okay, now I'll go back to do stuff, and users. Notice I have a lot more options here because I'm logged in as a full site administrator. List all users, and under each user group I can go in and add as many users as I want that fall under this resource group or that fall under site administrators. Okay, so this might be helpful. You might want to have more than one site administrator just so you can track if somebody made some changes. Same with the resource group. You may want to have several different login usernames and passwords for that group as well. You could have somebody that only has access to the blog or only has access to adding news and events. So this is a great tool to do that.